Let's jump right into this explainer. Because right now we're seeing a massive, absolutely critical shift happening in the high-stakes world of AI regulation. We're literally leaving the wild west of unchecked data collection in the rearview mirror, and we are entering a strict new era. It demands a rigid structure, the architecture of traceable intelligence. So if you manage, build, or rely on AI in any way, shape, or form, this structural shift is absolutely going to dictate how you operate moving forward. You know those old days of move fast and break things? Yeah, they're over. The new mandate is all about moving deliberately and proving everything.
To really grasp this, we need to step straight into the interrogation room because, well, that's exactly where regulators are putting AI systems today. And the contrast between the past and the present, it is stark. I mean, the old question regulators used to ask was incredibly basic. They just wanted to know, what decision did the model make? Did it approve the loan? Did it flag the transaction? Just a simple yes or no. But regulators, they are definitely not satisfied with just reviewing the final output anymore. They're aggressively pushing a super demanding new standard, which is, why did it make that decision? Imagine an AI denying a small business loan. You can't just hand the regulator a rejection letter and call it a day anymore. No way. They expect you to literally map out the exact reasoning pathways that led to that specific denial.
And the interrogation definitely doesn't stop there. The second you try to explain the why, the audit escalates. Boom. Next demand hits the table. What data influenced it? Regulators are drawing a direct, unyielding line straight from the final AI decision down to the raw ingredients fed into the machine. You can't just wave your hands and say, oh, well, our model is highly advanced, or it's proprietary. That doesn't fly. The auditor is sitting right across from you, demanding you point to the specific pieces of underlying data that taught your model to make that exact choice. Which brings us to the absolute peak of this escalating interrogation. Can you prove the inputs were trustworthy? Now, the absolutely crucial point here revolves around that single word, prove. It's no longer enough to just kind of assume your data is good or reliable. Actually, scratch that, it's never been enough. But now, black box excuses are completely dead on arrival. There is massive, mounting pressure on organizations right now to provide concrete, undeniable proof of their data's trustworthiness. If you can't mathematically and historically prove that the input was flawless, well, the regulator is simply going to assume the output is totally compromised. So why is answering those specific regulatory questions so incredibly difficult for organizations right now? Well, it essentially comes down to what we can call the missing alibi. When you look at standard AI datasets today, they fundamentally lack three essential elements. First up, there's no provenance. Think of provenance as a data birth certificate. Without it, there's literally no documented origin story of exactly where the data came from. Second, there's no validation history, meaning there's no chronological record of who checked the data, when it was verified, and how. It's like an inspector's logbook with completely blank pages. And third, there is zero contributor accountability. If a single flawed data point poisons the system, you can't trace it back to the individual or the system that contributed it. Without these three foundational pillars, your AI basically has no alibi when the regulators come knocking. I really want you to anchor this problem in reality for a minute. Let's look at specific, highly regulated sectors. I'm talking healthcare, finance, compliance. In these industries, your auditability status is simply not optional. Imagine the real-world consequences of an AI misdiagnosis in a hospital, or some unexplainable algorithm denying financial loans at scale. In these arenas, failing an audit doesn't just mean getting a slap on the wrist. We are talking about facing massive crippling fines, or even having your operating licenses revoked entirely. Excuses about opaque models, totally unacceptable when people's lives, their life savings, and corporate legal compliance are directly on the line. Okay, so how do we actually fix this at the data layer and give our AI that crucial alibi? Enter CoData. You can think of this framework as a traceable chain of custody designed specifically for metadata and annotations. It's essentially the ultimate truth teller for your data. It tackles that missing alibi problem head-on, giving datasets the rigorous historical accountability they desperately need to actually survive a modern audit. Under the system, every single piece of metadata and every human or machine annotation is tracked permanently in a totally transparent chain of custody. But wait, implementing this introduces what seems like an impossible paradox. I mean, how do you show regulators the complete history of your data without completely violating strict privacy laws? It's a super delicate balancing act. On one hand, you absolutely need this rigorous, highly detailed chain of custody to satisfy the auditors. But on the other hand, you absolutely require complete privacy preservation to protect your users and, stay legally compliant. The specific brilliance of this tool is exactly how it resolves that tension.
Organizations can now fully preserve user privacy, meaning absolutely zero sensitive private information gets exposed, while still maintaining the cryptographic proof required to show exactly how the AI's decisions were formed. A real game changer.
And this brings us to a really foundational realization for the future of the entire industry. AI systems operating in regulated environments will eventually need explainability built directly into the data layer itself. This completely shifts how we think about AI architecture from the ground up. It's no longer going to be enough to just tack some explainability software onto the very end of a finished model, cross your fingers, and hope for the best. The future of AI fundamentally requires deep, built-in transparency starting from the very first byte of data collected.
As regulators start asking much harder questions and the demand for traceable intelligence really becomes the industry standard, having that built-in explainability isn't just going to be a nice feature to have, it's going to be the absolutely only way your systems survive. So I'm going to leave you with this final thought as we wrap up this explainer. Look closely at your own datasets. Think about it. If your AI's data layer cannot explain itself today, will it even be allowed to operate tomorrow?